Now, why are you all doing this? Research, history?
Yeah, just documenting the lives of people in, like, this program is the Mississippi Freedom Project, so, like, focusing a lot on, like, people who are active in the civil rights movement. Oh yeah, sure. Are we recording? People who are active in the civil rights movement, as well as just stories like the story of the Elaine Massacre in 1919, which is really just not very well known about for most people.
It's not. It really is not.
It isn't.
It's becoming more known, but you know, when I was going to high school, was not even talked about.
Yeah. So we want to get just testament from people who've lived in Elaine who, you know, have stories relating to that and get it like in the historical record.
Okay.
Do you want to introduce?
Yeah. Okay, so hello, my name is Nushrat Our. I'm with the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program at the University of Florida. Today is July 15th, 2021, and I am interviewing Bernita Glass at the law office in Helena, Arkansas. So we're just going to go around introducing ourselves one more time, and then after that, we would love to have you introduce yourself and spell your name for our records.
Okay.
Kristen Gary. I'm a PhD student at the University of Florida. It's nice to meet you this morning.
Mm-hmm. You too. Yes.
I'm Ronan Hart. I'm an undergraduate history major at the University of Florida.
I'm Rachel. I just graduated with a double degree in history and music, and I'm going to law school in the fall.
Hello, my name is Jasmin Wooten. I'm a graduate student at the University of Florida.
Brittany Clarke, UF graduate, now educator at Gainesville High School.
All right.
Okay, I'm trying to turn off my phone because I don't want it to interrupt again, okay?
You're okay.
Okay.
And now if you could just spell your name for us and introduce yourself and what you do.
Okay, my name is spelled Bernita. Last name Glass, Glass. I am a descendant of those that were a part of the Elaine Massacre, and even more crucial, the town of Elaine is still living in yesteryear. So now I am now a workforce specialist. I work for the state. I work for in a workforce office. I've been there for just about 7-8 months. In 2014, I was diagnosed with a rare type of leukemia, and I had only 3 months to live, but I'm still here. I lost some time in between there and now, going over everything and recuperating and getting back up on my feet. And I don't know if you want me to continue to tell you why Ms. Olson thought that this would be a good idea. And that is because my parents purchased land in Elaine, and they are both deceased. And I have 4 other siblings, so the land was heir property to us, to all 5 of us. And the city of Elaine, the mayor approached me about selling the city, our property. Okay, and we discussed the price, and we said, okay, yes, we would do it. Then their attorneys told them that one of my siblings had a lien against them that would hinder the sale of the property. So it was suggested that one of us put the property in one person's name. So I did. I paid an attorney to have everything turned over. My siblings signed everything and signed it over to me, and it was in my name and my name only, still in my name. And the attorney, this was in 2008, the attorney told the city that they didn't think that that was a good idea. After suggesting that I do that, pay money, get an attorney, he told them that he didn't think that would be a good idea. And yes, I was a bit angry, so, you know, time still continued to pass. And then after going through all that I went through, I went down to Elaine, because I live up here now. went down to Elaine and I said, okay, it wasn't a good idea, but you still put this on my property without my permission. Okay, I said, it was in 2019. I went to go to one of the city council meetings. I was turned around by the mayor. This was in 2019, April of 2019. And he told me that, okay, he would relay what I needed to get to the council, what I needed from them. The next day, I explained all of it to him, that the property was mine and you all have put something on it. So he went in, and I don't know if he did or didn't tell the council, but the council members seen him turn me around. So I don't know whether or not he explained to them what I needed or not. So the next day he came up here, the mayor came to the courthouse, and he asked them about the lots, the land that was in Elaine where the park is. And he was told that, no, the city don't own all of those lots. Bernita Glass, which is me, have a lot in there. And the next day I received a phone call from the mayor. He called me and asked me, well, are you willing to donate your property? No, that was my answer. I'm not willing to donate anything. Okay, and I told, he said, well, he was going to talk with the city council and see what could be done. Then I was still willing. Okay, so well, we can negotiate, even though all this time has passed. So it went on and went on. Months passed by. I didn't hear from them. Months passed by again. I did not hear from them. So this year, which is 2021, April, I went back down to I was asked to be placed on the agenda so that I would have the right to speak. I was, and then at that particular time, I had a printout of all of what I expected from them. You had property you had material or equipment on my land without my permission. So I expect you to pay me rent for all the time that you had this on my property without my permission. Okay, then I had on there, all of the fees and everything, and I gave them two options. They could either purchase the property and pay me rent, or you can pay me rent and you will continue to pay me rent. Okay, and I told them I would come back the next city council meeting, which was in May. All right, they had the next city council meeting. I went to that meeting, and when I got in the meeting, there was also a witness, because Dr. Olson was sitting in there with us. The attorney for the city came in, and she was talking, and then she said, Ms. Glass, I didn't hear from your attorney. I said, I didn't tell you were going to hear from my attorney. You all were supposed to inform me whether you want this decision or you want the other. Oh, it hadn't been determined that you don't own the land yet. Your mayor went up here. They informed him that that's my property. But it hadn't been determined that the city don't own the property. I got the deed. Now, how is it that the burden of proof is not on me, it's mine. You can't get a record in that courthouse that says Elaine, Arkansas, owned that property. It's still in my name. I pay taxes on it, me. So there is no way, no form, no fashion that they can say that that belongs to them. And at this point now, they've agitated me. They've made me angry, thinking about all that they have done in the past. And I know it could have not been them, but it's time for somebody to stand up and let them know that we're not living in yesteryear anymore. It's time for we all have the same equal rights. So, and we could have avoided a scene or whatever if they would have just negotiated. But to me, the actions that they took, it made me feel that no, we're gonna take it and there's nothing you can do about it. That's how I feel. So that's why I am willing to go to extreme so that the town can start making them realize that what you're doing is wrong. We're all human. And you can't just walk up and say, okay, I want your shirt. I'm gonna take your shirt off of you, it's mine. Now prove that it's yours. That's the way I feel.
I had a question. Could you talk to me a little bit about what specific things that they put on your property? You mentioned equipment.
It's a playground. It's a park. They have, well, you know, it's several lots in there. So I can't specifically say, okay, this is what's on my lot, but they have basketball goals. They have parking area. They have a big thing that you could go sit up under.
So it's like a recreational?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like a little recreation area.
So you mentioned that you're going to keep fighting this. What are your next steps?
Well, I talked to several attorneys, and the thing of it is, most of them, they want $2,000 up front. I don't have $2,000 to give them up front.
Yeah.
Then I talked with Valley here, and he was supposed to do what needed to be done. I met with him once, and you know, we talked, but there's nothing been done since that. That was just it. So I've talked with my siblings, and I told them to retain an attorney. Everything so far I've done on my own. And before I got sick, I had a job, a good job, where I was able to do those things. But now, you know, I'm on disability, so I have that check, and I work part-time for the workforce, the state. So that's just to kind of balance out me and what I need to do to take care of me. I talked with the president. I'm thinking he was the president of the NAACP when we had the Juneteenth. I talked with him. And then there was another guy. I talked with several people. An attorney there, Ms. Morehouse. You know, I shared my story, told my story. I said, I will, you know, any kind of assistance, any kind of help that you can give me to support this. Now, if I had the money to retain the lawyer, I would gladly do it because it's time for a change. But I don't have that kind of money. So right now, I was approached, because I talked with the people at the assessor's office. And the guy that is over the assessor's office, I told them, you know, that I pay taxes on my property, not the city of Elaine. And they're using my property with no remorse, no nothing, no compensation, nothing. So I was informed yesterday that they will send the city of Elaine a letter from the assessor's office asking them to show where it has been determined that the city owned the property. They're supposed to get back with them, which that can't be done because they don't have any proof. So that, you know, and from that, only I can move forward is to continue to, well, prayerfully, if we have to move forward in that direction, if we have to obtain money, then I have told my siblings that even though their name's not on it, but I don't consider me by myself, it's still the five of us. So together, the five of us may be able to obtain the funds to pay what needs to be paid in order to get somebody to move. Okay. Because as I said, I will not be silent anymore. I'm not. I did not, because that was my home. That was where I grew up. I really, you know, I wish that, like I said, we could have done it, but no, they did not want to. You're looking at an African-American woman to where you think that because the color of my skin, I don't have any money, you think that I don't have knowledge enough to do what needs to be done, but yes, I do. Yes, I do. So that is the next, you know, the next step, coming up with that money to get the job done.
So you said you grew up on that land. Was your home there? Mm-hmm. And they what happened to it? Did they remove
my home?
It?
Oh, well.
I don't know how big this lot is, I guess.
No, in Elaine, okay, growing up, I moved back, and my parents moved back and forth because my father, he worked on a farm.
Okay.
So the first memories that I have, we were living in Tunica, Mississippi. And then when I was 4th grade, we moved from Tunica, Mississippi to Rashaw, Arkansas, which is a little bit past Elaine. And then we moved back when I was 9th grade to Mississippi. No, 6th grade, we moved back to Mississippi. And then when I was 9th grade, we moved back to Elaine, and we've been there ever since. But like I said, both of my parents, they purchased the land in Elaine. And then they decided that they purchased another house that was in Barton, Arkansas.
Okay.
So that was where, when they both passed, that was where they were living. But we still own, they still owned the property in Elaine. By that time, I was married and I had, my own home. I had, first me and my husband, we did a rent house. And then we went from a rent house, we got a home through FHA, which is also in Elaine. And I can't remember the year, but it was when gas prices went up to $4. And we were all working here in Helena. I said, we can pay for another house with the money we spent, because I drove a Tahoe, he drove a Ram, my daughter drove an Aspen. So I said, all that money, we can live up there and save ourselves. And that's when we began to look for a home, and then that's when I purchased where I am now still. But yes, I was born in Elaine. And I don't remember any of that until we moved over to Mississippi.
Okay. Good question.
Do you feel like what happened to your land here is the same type of like racist abuse of power that's been happening in places like Elaine and Arkansas throughout the South for a long time now?
Yes, sad, but yes, that is how I feel. All the property there, well, since you don't know Elaine, there was a ditch that separated blacks on this side, whites on that side. And this was when I was growing up. I mean, this was when I was in high school. You could see that this side was better and this side wasn't. But I was told, after things started coming out about the massacre and everything, that the black side of Elaine, that land was given to blacks. And in the process, most of them back then, they couldn't read, and they didn't, if they signed something, they didn't know what they were signing or put an X there. And that was how all of those that the whites own property now on the black side, that was how they obtained it. And it was, they started putting the projects there, the complexes for low-income people. And one guy, he had a brick house, they put the project right on this side of the ditch. He was so upset. I had never seen anybody move a brick home, but he did. He didn't want to be that close to that. So yes, I do believe that this is everywhere else had, you look, it could be a black or could be a white. You didn't know who was living there, a black or a white. But in Elaine, you did, because the blacks were on this side and the whites were on that side. Still a lot like that, but there are a house here and there that a black person have purchased, and they live on that side of the ditch.
You mentioned the massacre and how you heard about it growing up and stuff like that. Could you talk to me a little bit about the history of Elaine residents and how the massacre hasn't really been talked about by the greater Arkansas or the surrounding areas and stuff?
Okay, like I said, when I was going to school, that was not talked about. And I can't tell you how long it's been since everything has been coming up, and kids are now being, they know what happened to the people in Elaine, 100 years ago. I feel that in the beginning, they didn't want anybody to know. It's just that I am superior attitude. Sad, but, that's the way I feel. And in Elaine, even as an adult. I rented, and then I own my own property. I thought that, it made me feel that, okay, here we still living in black. This is what you get, white, this is what you get. And this is better and this is less. So, and there are still some there now that still hold that resentment for black people in their heart. They went to put they do have a Dollar General there now, but I was told that the whites tried so hard not to get that, not to allow that. Why wouldn't you allow that? That helps. Because there are some people that can't afford to come all the way up here to Helena to purchase food, but they don't have a choice. That's what they have to do because there's nowhere in Elaine to get this. And they allowed where you said this is our city, but we had enough, because when I was going to school, we had whites and black there. And then somewhere along the line, the majority of the whites pulled their kids out. And then there was just, it was some whites still there, but the majority was black that was actually there. When they did the consolidating of the school. When they consolidated the school, Elaine literally died. Because if you go down there now, it looked almost like a ghost town. And I applaud Dr. Olson for what she's doing because it puts some life there. But when when they consolidated the school district and Elaine kids had to go to Marvel, that pulled all of the revenue out of that city because that was where the biggest part of the people were employed. So then they had to look for employment. Then a lot of them did like I did, they moved. So you probably can look back at the numbers and see that it's gradually, going down, down, down. But yes, it's hard to say, some people teach their children that person is not for you to talk to. That person is beneath you. And I didn't know. What I taught my children was that whatever you want, if it's healthy, if it's wholesome, work for it and you can have it. I don't care who got it, you can have it. Always been, that's what I was taught, that if you strive for something, you can do it, regardless to whether this person over here don't want you to do it. It can be done because there is a way.
Do you feel like the Elaine you grew up in was very different from the Elaine that your parents grew up in or that your kids are growing up in?
I do.
Now?
Each generation, it changes. See, when my parents were growing up, in Elaine, there was more business and everything there at that particular time. But I actually remember, when I was smaller, the blacks could not go in the front door of anywhere. Like if it's a restaurant, they're selling food, you got to go around to the back. Now, I'm paying my money just like that man that's in there sitting down, but I can't go in there.
Wait, how old are you?
I am 57. Wait, ask me to show you my picture of me in 2015 after I was sick. People said, that was you? Miraculous.
Do you have that picture?
I do.
To show it? I mean, we have a camera out if you'd like to.
And I keep it so that it reminds me what I went through and how God brought me through.
But you're saying that 57 is not old by any means.
No, it's not. It's not.
But you're still going through these things that people say happened so long ago. Yeah.
Like I said, when my parents were growing up, it was much, much different. And then when my children are growing up, it was much different for them. As my grandchildren now, they're sitting there asking me, well, Granny, how was it back in long time when you were growing up? But I want them to know, so we explain it to them. So we want them to actually feel that they belong here. But yeah, my dad always worked on a farm. If he changed from one farmer to another. He did, and there were several. Usually the farmers had, the farm had farmhouses, so we didn't have to look for a home. We always had a home already there in the farm. When my parents first purchased, we moved up to Elaine from, and it's such small little towns back, but there's Little Dixie, there's Rashaw, there's Millwood, all of those little areas. And we lived, and when he worked on a farm, we lived in Rashaw, that was one. Then we moved back to Mississippi, then we moved back up here, then we lived I can't remember what that little farm was called, but that was a house. We always lived in the farmhouses until I was actually grown. I had just gotten out of school because my 12th grade year, we were still living on Little Dixie, which I think was David Griffin's farm. And shortly after that, my parents moved up to Elaine. A friend let them live in a trailer that was theirs. And at that particular time, I can't remember how long they stayed there, but after the trailer caught on fire and burned. And then, of course, you know that you got to find somewhere else to live. But back and forth, then that was, my dad and my mom purchased the lot where I have, and we're battling with Elaine now, and put a trailer there.
Okay.
That was when, they no longer lived in the houses of the farmers. So that means everything that was done, my dad and my mom had to pay to get it done. But see, of course, on the farm, the boss would fix everything. But that was when they decided that they wanted to get their own. And then, like I said, from there, they got the property in Barton. And when they passed, my brother lived there a little while, but the house was just there. So we sold it to the lady that was next door. When I say we, me and my other siblings. I hope that answers your question.
So it seems like you all went from, it's from moving around to these different farms. So was the sharecropping?
No, it wasn't sharecropping.
Or tenant farming?
When my dad worked, he worked for them, and they paid him an hourly salary. So when he decided to change from one farmer to the other, he had negotiated to whereas, okay, this is what I am going to be paid per hour. My dad couldn't read. He couldn't. He said that the grade that he went to, he said he only made it to pre-primer, and I don't know what pre-primer was. Mm-hmm. But he stopped and he went to work. He had, if far back as he remember, 7 or 8 years old, he was working on a farm. That's what he did all of his life. He worked on a farm.
And was he from Elaine originally?
Yes.
And your mom was from Elaine also?
Well, she was from, I think her parents lived in Lakeview, which you get to Lakeview a little bit before, in the same area almost, but you get to them before you get to Elaine. Now, my mom, she got to the 11th grade, but she did not graduate high school. But she could, she had knowledge. She could read, she could write. And when we were growing up, when everything come to reading, taking care of or write, she did it. But my dad did not know how to read, but he could really count his money. You weren't gonna cheat him. So he could do that.
Yeah, it's very impressive that he went from just working on farms to eventually owning his own land, and now you've come as far as you have in this place.
Yes.
It's really impressive.
And it's with believing in yourself. I refuse to let anybody tell me what I can and can't have. That's what got me through the sickness that I was in. Doctors would come in and they said, you Miss Glass? I said, yes, I am. He said, well, because he went back 2 or 3 times to the nurse's station, and he had my file, and he looked at me and he said, here on this paper, you almost ain't here. he said, but the you that I see in that bed, that's a live person. And that's sheer determination. And that was what my parents instilled in me and my siblings.
So I know you said that when you were growing up, things were still segregated. There was still very much, and this is considered to be after Jim Crow ends in the mid '60s. And you saying it was very much
Jim Crow didn't
still.
end it right there not for our area. It really didn't.
Do you think that was common for smaller towns in
I
the
do.
South?
I do. But see, still, growing up, when I came to Helena, it was different because it was big. I guess it was bigger than Elaine was, and I could see, growing up. Okay, black people live in those neighborhoods, and white people live on that side. They were all living in the same area, but not in Elaine when I was growing up. It was not segregated, but then yet it was segregated because they refused. How they started obtaining land and purchasing homes on the other side of the ditch was that they may have had a boss man that purchased the land for them, because if they would have known that there was going to be a black person living next to them, then no, they would not have sold that to them. So that was how it all kind of started to spill over.
I just wanted to ask, do you know anyone personally that is also kind of struggling with this kind of similar problem where the city is denying them of land that was rightfully theirs?
Yeah, there are several people that the land was taken from. I don't just know per se which one or who, a name or not. But yeah, there are several of us that the same thing has happened. They just took the property, and then if that person that owned that property, he died, and it could be that their family never knew anything about it, so they just took it. Nothing said.
Yeah.
But again, I say it's time to bring about a change. In Elaine and wherever else it may be.
What kinds of changes do you want to see happen in Elaine?
I would like to see in Elaine to where people feel a sense of this is my town.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have just as much right to be here as anybody else do. But now, basically, it's not young people there. It's some there, but young people, you have a family that you got to support. So if here don't support your family, then you move. And that's what has happened. We've had a whole lot of migration. I was the director of a Head Start program here in Helena. And I had to do a community assessment every year. I had to do a full-blown one to where you look and see what's going on, what's happening, in order to support the program having children. That community assessment always shown that there were outward migration of the young people moving out because there were no jobs. They couldn't take care of a family, so they moved to Memphis, to Little Rock, some even to Helena, to where the work is. So that's why I say, I really hate the fact that where I grew up, the town is look like it's just going to cease to non-existence. Because if you don't have anything there to keep them there, now of course the elderly people, they don't have a choice. They're settled and they're there. But the young people that are growing up, as they grow up, they move. And that means you don't have anybody here that's kind of bringing more children into the community.
So, do white communities in Elaine also deal with this outward migration?
Ma'am?
Do the white communities in Elaine also deal with this outward migration?
Yeah, like I said, because we didn't just say blacks was outward migration. It was the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because see, and then there were some that were white that moved as well because
There's just no jobs.
Nothing.
Yeah.
if you didn't work on a farm, and that's basically what keeps those that are there, agriculture. They work on a farm for someone, and they pay them hourly wages.
This baby's really cute, by the way. Is that your grandchild?
Yes, he helped me through that so much, and I feel just because he was little, just came in the world, and I was always just excited to see him. So yes, he was there keeping me hanging on.
Okay, so my question.
I'm sorry, I have hearing aids on, but I can't hear you. I hear this thing behind me. I'm
So
sorry.
my question for you is, because you didn't really truly get the opportunity to even say what you wanted for the land. Like, the land was, I should have wrote it down when I had it, but I had this question for a while. But what I'm trying to say is, or ask, is that when you do receive justice for your land, do you still want rent from those that are occupying it right now, or will you, keep the land? Like, what are your end goals for the land, your purpose?
Well, my siblings and myself, we talked about that, and like I said, that's why I gave them the two options. Mm-hmm. I really don't care to be a landowner, because I have my home. That's what I own, and that in Elaine is just the fact that was my parents' property, and I just don't want you to just take it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. They kind of angered me so to where I just want to say, okay, you're gonna pay me this, and I'm gonna make you pay me for the rest of my life.
Yes.
Because you thought that you could just take something and nothing would be done. But so to answer your question, I'm not exactly sure whether I want to sell them the property out and out. But I think I do. But we would have to come to some kind of consensus with my siblings. Like I said, we put it in my name, but I don't consider it to just be mine.
True.
It's ours.
Yeah.
So it would be more than just me making that choice.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you said that it was even a struggle to put a Dollar General in the area. And that most of the younger people are moving out of Elaine and migrating to other areas. Do you think that's the intent of the wealthier people that live there, to have more people leave?
I don't, because that's the only consensus that you could come to, because if you don't want this here, you will benefit from that dollar store there, just like the poor person. Mm-hmm. You can go there. That's the only store. Well, we have another little store that was called Robert One Stop. They sell chicken, and the prices are so high to where, okay, like when I was growing up, the elderly people, they got a check, a little bit of, that SSI, which wasn't enough to do a whole lot with. So they survived by, it used to be a grocery store, they gave them credit. The pharmacist, they needed medicine, so the pharmacist there gave them credit. When they got their check that next month, they owed all of that, so they just started the cycle all over again. Mm-hmm. So if it would not have been for them letting them have credit, then they could not have survived either. So to answer that question, I do believe that was the intent, to keep, you're going to eventually have to leave because you're not going to have anything here. Why you would want to see that look like that, I don't know.
Do you think that's related to the specific history in Elaine?
Now that's hard to say, because I would have to speculate on what I think that they're thinking, and I don't know. I don't want to say yes, and I don't want to say no.
You said your dad was born here and grew up here and is like an Elaine native. I just wanted to ask, do you have any other relatives further back that were living in Elaine?
Yeah, I still have relatives that live in Elaine. I have cousins. I have several uncles. I have one aunt that still live in Elaine. And they probably will until they leave here because, like I said, they're at an age to where you don't want to be dealing with a lot of change. But now it's better that they have cars or they have someone that will bring them up here from Elaine on the weekend to get what they need to carry them throughout through that week or throughout the month. Sometimes, they come and they do monthly shopping. It's just that this is where it's not as expensive as it is in Elaine. Now, a poor town, and when the prices, and they know that they don't have any choice but to buy it if you need it, regardless of the price of it. But the cost is hard, very hard.
And you mentioned a little bit about how there's a lot of young people leaving. Could you talk to me a little bit about like the school situation there? Like, what do schools look like?
It was a nice school, and they had just recently. I don't know how long it had been there, but when I was going, there was a gymnasium over here. We didn't have a cafeteria. We all ate at the elementary, but they had gotten to where high school had a cafeteria, and you didn't have to walk all the way down to the elementary school. But since it's consolidated, when they consolidated the small district, that you had to maintain 250 students or above in order to maintain your district. And like I said, with people migrating and going back and forth, it couldn't happen. We couldn't pull 250 students. So children, because if I say Snow Lake, you don't know what I'm talking about. But it's like going on back past Elaine. That was like another 30 miles. There might be a little mom and pop store in those areas. But the kids have to come all the way from down there to Elaine. Then from Elaine to Marble. A lot of the time, the kids go to school in the dark, especially in the winter time. They go to school in the dark, they get on the bus in the dark, and they get home in the dark. And I hate that that's something that they have to do. So the curricular activities where the school brought maybe basketball games and different events that was done, a lot of them can't do that because they don't have a way to get back and forth to Marble to do those extracurricular activities. So yeah, it's sad, but everything is just kind of deteriorating.
So I know how we talked a lot about how the economic.
Okay, I hear you talking.
Oh, sorry. I know we talked a lot about how the economic factors are pushing a lot of young people out and a lot of children out. But if you're able to, can you describe if there is still some sense of interpersonal community? So just like, is there a feeling of like this is still like a community kind of at the basic level?
Well, yeah, I would say yes. Some of those that are still there, because you have some that live there and they work. There is a boot factory in DeWitt, Arkansas, which some of people from Elaine, they drive there and work. Some of them live in Elaine and they come here and work, which is just 20-25 mile commute back and forth. So yes, there is still a sense that this is my community, and there is like I said, those that are there said this is my home, like my aunt and my uncles. There is no, they're not intending to move. So, yeah, they're okay with this is my home. This is where I belong. So yes, there is still a sense of belonging there.
And then also, do you think the opening of the Elaine Legacy Center has in any way impacted that sense of community, especially at the youth level?
It has. I mean, the Legacy Center was the best thing that could have happened for Elaine, because that is when it started to teach the younger people, the younger generation, what has happened back in that time. That was when it all started coming out about the background of Elaine, what has happened, where they come from, where they are now. So yes, it has been. And they have that center have brought a feeding program for the kids. They did summer activities for the kids. Yes, it has a big, I don't know the right word, it ain't coming to me right now, but it's a tremendous impact of what has happened. And then they also, they did a statue to commemorate the massacre, but they wanted this, I'm thinking it's here in Helena. And the Elaine one, okay, it didn't happen in Helena, so why you putting it in Helena when it should go in Elaine? Someone, they put a tree there to grow. That someone they pulled it up, they tore it up.
Mr. White was telling us about that yesterday.
So yes, it's a lot going on. It's a lot to take in, but at least now I do believe that the generations to come will at least know what has happened and what their forefathers have gone through.
So I have it written down this time. So in re-educating the youth within your family about the tragedies of Elaine and what you're hopeful for of Elaine becoming, are you prompting your kids or like the future generations within your area to like come back after maybe receiving higher education back into the community to build it up?
They do. The schools, we've had one alumni class reunion with anybody that was an alumni of Elaine. And that one, it did very well. But of course, you know, the COVID-19 and changed a whole lot of the way people do and live. Because at one point, I thought COVID was going to wipe out Elaine because there was not that many people there. But there were a whole lot of cases there. But yes, there are still some that come back home. I take my grandchildren and, you know, show them where we live, where we went to school. And it's almost not there because, you know, but now, since the Legacy Center, they are starting to do things, at least with the new part of the school, the gymnasium, and then they had classrooms in there. But, you know, some of it is still, it's just crumbling down, deteriorating. But they still, you know, those that live beyond Elaine, they come back and they see where their town is now. And then you have loved ones that are buried that, you know, you come back just to, you know, just every now and then see what's going on.
I just wanted to add like a follow-up to Jasmin's question about the Legacy Center and its impact on the youth. What do you think it means to the people in Elaine who are older, like you said, who aren't going to move, who are settled in? What does that Legacy Center mean to them, do you think?
Now that I'm not quite sure, because sometimes, you know, the older people, it don't mean as much for what's going on in the community. But at least they have their little piece right here. I'm content right here with what I have. And it's hard to get them to move because, like I said, some of the kids have come back and tried to get their parents to move. But if they still have their health and strength, they're not moving. But when they get sick, they need someone to take care of them, then their loved ones have to move them out. And then, of course, that leads to, okay, they don't have anything else down there, so they're not coming back. They're not going to visit because I have my family, or my family has moved on. Because, like for me, I have cousins, aunts, one aunt, and then several uncles that are there. And even though I'm just, I'm just right here, I don't have a reason to just say I'm going down there and hang out. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
I do still attend church there because that's my church home. So, and there's not a lot of people in membership, but you know, we're still there.
And really quick, just to go back to what you were saying about how COVID was really hard in Elaine, do you think that there was any difference between the kind of like either supplies or vaccinations or anything between the black part of Elaine versus the white part of Elaine, or was all of Elaine hit kind of pretty hard by COVID?
Now, see, I knew the blacks that had it, but I don't know about the whites that had it, you know, because they could have had it and not known it. No, well, you not known it because they didn't make it known, but the cases that I heard of were mostly black.
I guess two things. I was also going to ask if there's just anything else about coronavirus in Elaine, its effect on the town, how things have changed because of it that you want to add.
Okay, now, you said that.
Just anything regarding coronavirus in Elaine and how it's maybe changed things that you'd like to add.
Well, I don't think it had a very, very big impact on the way that they do things because, you know, family is just that. And almost everybody, if you see this one over here, he can to that one over there, and you see that one over there, you know, they're all kind of some kind of way related in this little circle, trying to keep it going. So, yeah, except that's kind of how it all spread it so rapidly because everyone was related and one go back here and, you know, the other one got it. Then some of them, they had relatives living elsewhere and they got it and brought it back. There was some, you know, they had different events that so many people were there. And see, a small town, everybody's right there together. So I'm thankful that it didn't go all the way around to everyone.
I'm also wondering, another one of our researchers who's on this trip with us, who's not here right now, Adolfo, he's worked a lot with farm workers in Florida, and he's talked about how being exposed to the kinds of, you know, working in and just around these farms, these industrial farms with all the pesticides and herbicides and fertilizers has a really negative impact on the health of those people and the whole community for asthma and all these other diseases. Is that something that's seen in Elaine?
Yes. Again, I go back to when I was the director of the Head Start program in this area. We could see the number of children coming in that were more and more. We had more asthma children. We had children that would have seizures. It was, we didn't, you know, back when I was growing up, we didn't know a lot about autism, a lot of that. And I'm not just saying that the corona or the pestilence done it, but there were some drug issues to where you got a kid that was born with, because mom did drugs and passed that on to the baby. But yeah, the pestle, my dad worked and they put down chemicals. Back at that time, we would chop cotton. I didn't do a lot because I'd have migraine headaches. But the kids they chopped cotton in order to buy school clothes for the upcoming year. And see, now my children don't know anything about no chopping in the field. They spray with their airplane and kill all the pestilence. You know, it used to be to where, you know, dirt was just that, dirt. You play in it, you make mud cakes, do whatever with it. But now you tell them, no, don't do that because there are so many chemicals that have already been embedded in that dirt. So it's not in any form or fashion healthy. So yes, it does affect the growing up of the children with the pesticides. I do. After doing the community assessments, it shows that those things cause a whole lot of problems.
Okay, so you mentioned that you go to church, and I just wanted to know the role of the church in re-educating the community on the...
Okay, I see you. I'm trying to read your lips.
Okay, so I wanted you to, I guess, just talk more about the role of the church in talking about the tragedies that happened within Elaine.
Okay.
If that's something that's talked about, or are there community efforts within the church to help out?
Not really. Not in Elaine. There's not a whole lot of advocacy going on because, like I said, it's a small town. A lot of times, if someone coming in that you don't know, you're not going to really trust them because that's you're a newcomer. Now, the churches that are still in Elaine is a very small town, but we have Morning Star, St. Luke, First Baptist, Pilgrim Rest. See, it's so many little churches to where you got a few here and a few there. And I said, just get one great big church and let us all go to the same place. But no, it's because, this is where my parents went to church here, and then someone else, their parents went to church there. So that's what kind of keeps it going. Those that had ancestors that were there. That's why we go.
And I wanted to know, how do they grapple with the segregation that goes on within the community, knowing that a few blocks down there's the same type of Baptist church, but it's all white versus your church that's all black. How do they kind of reconcile with knowing the faith within Christianity but having such a divide, living within this time of such great divide and segregation? How do they kind of express
still,
that?
There are, you won't see a black at the white church. Mm-hmm. Every now and then you might see somebody, but those that are there, the blacks have their churches and the whites have their churches. That's still the way it is in Elaine.
Okay, and there's no initiative to kind of breach that, or
No, there is no liaisons between that could actually put all that together. No, I don't think that they've actually even tried to do that.
You talked a little bit about how it could be a sense of distrust if there's kind of an outsider who comes in asking questions. So I wanted to know, have you seen a direct impact on the Elaine community of the increased recognition of the Elaine Massacre and potential media coverage from outsiders coming into the community and asking questions, and how has that changed the community, maybe even on both sides, so the fact that the town is kind of still segregated amongst black and white lines?
There's no newcomers coming to move there. There's no moving in. It's moving out. Now you may have some that live farther down the road move up to Elaine, but see, that's still been there. And I have a Zoom meeting in 11 minutes.
Okay.
Well, is there anything else you want to say before we close out? Anything you want to put on the record for future generations to hear about?
The only thing I would say to each and every one is, don't let the past reflect on how you live today, because what happened then is not the day today. And children are not born with racism in them. It's taught to them. And hopefully we will get to a point to where it's not taught to the children that you don't talk to this person because they're that color. Just let them grow up and be American. Let them just say we all live, as they said a long time ago, in the melting pot. We all blended here together. Yeah, feel free to do what needs to be done.
Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. You are so welcome. Like I said, it needs to be done. The story needs to be told.